Hello everyone and welcome to my ultimate beginner's guide for Fallout 76. If you've got hundreds of hours in the game, then you probably don't need this video. But if you're new to the game, or struggling a bit near the beginning, then this guide could prove invaluable to you. There's a lot of info in this video, so I will be leaving detailed timestamps in the description. And I'll also put up something on screen now to let you know the general categories I'll be covering and when they show up, so that you can skip to any you particularly need help with, or skip over anything you already know the ins and outs of. Without any more delay, let's get on with the guide. To start off, we're going to talk about levelling up. Once you're out of Vault 76, you'll have reached level 2, and be able to head into your menu and see a prompt at the bottom to level up. When you level up, there are two key factors you need to consider: Special and Perk Cards. First off, let's go over to Special, as this is what you'll be prompted to pick before you even get to the Perk Cards. There are 7 different stats to choose from in Special: Strength, Perception, Endurance, Charisma, Intelligence, Agility, and Luck. Each of these stats improves your character in some way, and can be raised to a maximum of 15. In total, you will have 49 points to spread throughout these, and each of them is set at 1 to begin. Although you could spread these evenly and end up with 8 in each stat, it's worth trying to fit them to how you want to play, so let's go over what each stat actually does. Strength is probably the most straightforward of all these stats. It increases melee and unarmed damage by 5% per rank, and also grants an extra £5 carry weight with each point added into it. Obviously, this makes it incredibly helpful if you're planning on not using guns all that much, but it also is useful for every character out there, as carry weight can be a bit of an issue in this game, so every boost you can get really pays for itself. Perception is most notably useful for increasing your chance to hit when using VATS. VATS, the Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System, is essentially an auto-aim feature built into the Fallout franchise. In Fallout 76, it takes place in real time, literally just being an auto-aim with a percentage-based chance to hit. The higher your perception stat, the better chance you will have to hit the enemy, up to a maximum of 95%. This is very helpful if you're not the best when it comes to combat, as you can instead have the game do the aiming for you. VATS-based combat can potentially be quite strong, so a high perception certainly holds merit. Even if you are a good shot, plenty of enemies in the game move fast, so missing shots will occur in free aim. Additionally, the perception stat will help you to detect enemies on your compass. At the bottom of the screen you have a compass, which also shows you symbols for nearby locations, and red dots for enemies. The higher your perception, the further these red dots can show up. This is a minor advantage from the stat, but it's still something worth knowing. On to Endurance now, which is the stat based around making you tougher. Each point of Endurance gives you 5 additional hit points, and also increases your disease resistance. Extra health is fairly obvious as to its helpfulness. The more hit points you have, the more damage you can take. Admittedly, it's not a huge increase per rank, but it still can make a difference. The disease resistance, though, can almost be more helpful. In Fallout 76, you can catch diseases in various ways, be it breathing toxic fumes, being hit by a diseased enemy, or even just going for a swim. These diseases are temporary debuffs, reducing stats on your character unless you cure them with antibiotics or a disease cure. These items are somewhat plentiful, so don't fret too much about diseases, but keep in mind that a high endurance character will eat through less disease cures than a low endurance one. Finally, Endurance also reduces the drain from your action points while sprinting, allowing you to sprint for longer. Charisma is one of the more interesting stats in the lineup. The most simple part about it is that it improves prices when bartering. Appalachia is populated with robotic vendors, with whom you can trade. If you have a higher charisma skill, then the prices for buying will be lower and selling will be increased, making it easier to keep your caps high. For every 3 points in charisma, you can also share a point worth of perk cards with your team. Now, I'm fully aware that sentence probably doesn't make much sense on its own, so let me explain. If you have your charisma at 3, you can share a 1 point perk card with the players on your team, meaning each player effectively has that perk card equipped. If you have a charisma of 6, then you can share either a 1 point or a 2 point perk card with your teammates. Likewise, 9 points of charisma means up to a 3 point perk card can be shared, 12 charisma relates to a 4 point perk card shared, and the maximum of 15 charisma means you can share any perk card with your team, even a maxed out 5 point card. This does make charisma most useful in ranks of 3, however you can only share a single card. What this effectively means is you can give your entire team a bonus perk card providing you've got the charisma for it. This does make Charisma most useful in ranks of 3, however you can only share a single card, so even if you have a maxed out Charisma stat, you can't share 5 different single point perk cards. Due to the way the system works, I would recommend every character play with at least a Charisma of 3, as it makes you a more valuable member of a team, as you can always share a perk card. Charisma also is listed as affecting rewards from group quests, however I've not been able to find anything on what this exactly does, as current accounts seem to indicate it doesn't actually change anything on a noticeable scale. I would assume it's to do with completing quests held by the group leader, but that's honestly not something to worry about. Intelligence is our next stat, and one that will prove most helpful to those of you who want to craft your own gear. When crafting weapons or armour, the amount of condition and durability they have is directly related to your intelligence. This means that gear crafted by a high intelligence character will break slower than gear crafted by a low intelligence one. Additionally, you gain more junk when you scrap down items if you have a higher intelligence, making it handy for gaining a little more junk. Our penultimate stat is Agility, and this both increases our pool of action points and boosts our ability to sneak. The stealth aspect is fairly straightforward. If you want to be a stealth-based character, just put more and more points into Agility until you feel happy with it. As for action points, you gain an additional 10 per each rank of Agility. These are used both in sprinting and whilst using VATs, meaning Agility improves both how long you can sprint for, and makes VAT-based combat something you can engage in more often. Finally, we have Luck, which determines how quickly you fill your critical hit bar, and also impacts the condition and durability of items you loot. This stat works as the other side to Intelligence. If you want to focus on using equipment you made yourself, Intelligence is better, but if you want to use items you pick up as you go, then Luck is the better choice. As for the critical hit bar, this is something that relates to VATs-based combat. Each hit you score in VATs will build up this bar, which results in a stored critical hit. You can use this critical at any time during VATs-based combat for a significant amount of bonus damage. A big advantage to high luck characters is they can rapidly gain back critical hits, sometimes even chaining them rapidly within a single fight. That's it for what each of the special stats does, now to talk about which ones you will likely find most helpful. Right at the start of the game, I tend to put my first point or two into Strength. Extra carry capacity is useful for any build out there, and right at the beginning, you may struggle a little with ammo, so the extra melee or unarmed damage is helpful, even if you don't plan on focusing on melee combat later on. Depending on the kind of build you want to make, you might want to focus on different combinations of special. A straightforward melee build will likely go high strength, high endurance. A sniper may well go for perception and agility, stealth melee would be strength and agility, a VATs-based combatant would be perception, agility and luck, and a power armor based squad leader would be high charisma and intelligence. If you are looking for build ideas, I've got a whole playlist of builds I've made right here on the channel that you can check out by clicking the icon in the top right. What often matters most when selecting special and working out your build is the perk cards, so let's take a look at those now. Fallout 76 has a different perk system to any of the previous games in the franchise. This game focuses on a card and loadout based system, which essentially means you have a growing deck of perk cards to choose from, and there's a limit to how many you can have equipped, depending on what your specials are. To keep things simple, let's take a look at a perk card and break down the different elements of it. Here we have a perk card. In the bottom left we see a letter, corresponding to which of the special stats it relates to, as well as a colour which does the same thing. We also have the title of the card, text of what it does, and a nice little picture to go along with it. In the top left, we have the cost of a card. This ranges between 1 and 5. This relates to how much of the relevant special it takes up to have equipped. For example, a character with 6 strength could have 6 different strength perk cards equipped if they all cost 1 point. However, they could only equip 2 cards with a 3 point cost. The higher your special, the more cards you can have equipped. The final part of a card is in the bottom right, showing the rank. Each star is its own rank. Cards can have only a single rank or multiple ranks up to 5. Ranking up a perk card will increase how powerful it is, but it will also raise the cost of the card, so don't just blindly rank up every card you have. Instead, make sure you can actually still afford to equip the stronger variant. Now that we've gone over what the perk card is and what it's made up of, let's talk about how you acquire them. Here there are 2 different ways. Each time you level up, you not only get to raise a special point, but you also get to pick a perk card. At each level, new perk cards become available to unlock, but you do have to unlock a card on each level up, meaning you can't actually save the levels for later unlocked cards. Take your time to consider which perk card you want to unlock, as you don't want to waste a level up on something you won't use if it can be helped. As well as choosing perk cards yourself, you will get perk card packs as you play. You gain a perk card pack at levels 4, 6, 8, 10, and then every 5 levels after, meaning level 15, 20, 25, and so on. Each time you open a perk card pack, you get 4 random perk cards. These work as a good way to supplement the cards you've selected yourself, but shouldn't be relied on too heavily as they are random. When working on your own build, you want to focus on both the special and the perk cards you want to obtain. If you wanted to max out damage with non-automatic rifles, then you would need at least 9 points in perception to fit in the trio of maxed out rifleman perk cards. Due to this, you want to consider both which perk cards and which special you want to go for as you level up, otherwise your build could end up not working. Now this might sound a little worrying if you're new to the game and think you could mess up early choices and not be able to play the game you want to. To that I would say, it's okay. Everything will be fine. After you've reached level 50, you can continue to use level ups to unlock new perk cards, or you can use them to move special points around, taking away a point from one stat and adding it to another. This means that, even if you do mess up your special a bit early on, you will eventually be able to rectify it. That's it for leveling, now let's focus on what to do when you're actually playing the game, starting off with exploration. To kick things off, I'll tell you what I do immediately after leaving Vault 76. So, here we are outside of Vault 76. This is where you'll be when you very first leave the game. And first thing I'd advise doing is running down this little stairway here, and don't worry about the robot, he will have stuff to say to you, but it's not too important. Instead, run down the next set again, and this person right here will have a machete on them. Take that, equip it, it will be your melee weapon. This, early on, will be very handy. Just a nice little early melee weapon to get you started. Does its whole slashing, popping of balloons, perfect. Just what we were after. Now, instead of carrying on the path you're going, I'd advise running back up to the vault and heading over to this corpse over here as well. On this lady, you will find some .38 rounds and a pipe pistol. That then gives you a ranged weapon to use as well. You'll now notice these here. Yeah, Liberator, Mark 0. And yeah, they will spot you after a little while. But you can run down to them, and it's fairly easy to take them out. For me, it will only take a single swing. For you, it might be 2 or 3 swings, but these are not particularly challenging enemies, especially early on. On them, you can see fusion cells, steel scrap. You'll get like some basic stuff from them. Now, additionally, make sure in every location, this is just a general tip, make sure you've actually cleared out all the enemies before you start checking in things to loot. First thing you want to loot though is this first aid container. You'll see here there's some Radaway, which reduces radiation, and some dirty water. Not the best stuff, but it's always worth going in a first aid container. The items in this will be randomised, but they're worth looking in. You also have a couple of suitcases here, which will normally have bits of junk in them, which, right at the start of the game, just pick up any junk you have. Now, if you continue down, you have this little car, with this little dead soldier here, and this is an explosive crate, and you can see there, a frag grenade. Get yourself some early explosives that you can use on tougher enemies. Additionally, there are more liberators here for us to take out, so go and kill them. As an additional quick tip, a sprinting attack actually does more damage than a stationary one. Oh, just hit the corpse again. So feel free to charge at the enemy and then swing at them, instead of just walking up to them, stopping, and then attacking. If you can get the hand of sprinting attacks, you'll do a lot better at melee combat. And keep an eye out for where you need to go. If you think you're cleared out, hit the crouch button. And, okay, still in caution, so there is an enemy about somewhere. But I can't see them anywhere too close. If it says you're in danger, be worried. Okay, I'm in hidden now. So yep, all is fine. So that's all the enemies dead. So if we go back up to this point, so it's easier to work out where I'm going from. This is the bottom of the little road here. There's first off a little military transporter here. On the right, a duffel bag, normally has ammo in. And on the left, an ammo box, normally has ammo in. So that's early bits of ammo you can grab right there. And that's the majority of what you'll be looking for. Then go back in yourself, but on the little down area here, and this postman corpse. They tend to have a couple of weapons on them. I've also seen drugs on this guy, which is pretty good. So here you can get yourself multiple weapons. These are a little random as to what they will be, but well worth coming over to this responder corpse here, and just seeing what he's got on him. Now, circle around, always check buses. Buses are great because, yep, often have suitcases with valuable junk. See, that's junk I need. There's also this little footlocker here. There's some armour and more junk. Even more junk in here. Ammo and a weapon in this duffel bag. I'm not sure if it's a guaranteed spawn to have a weapon in there, but I've always had ammo in there. And then more junk in the suitcase. So, all good stuff you'll likely want. Now, additionally, this little section here with the van for Grafton Still. More places with junk in them. Toolboxes, suitcases, all handy stuff you might need. Then go beyond them. There's a little ammo box here, so even more early ammo, which is something you can struggle with a bit. And more containers of suitcases with junk. And even a little bubblegum bear. Isn't that cute? Now, we're not done yet, because there's even more ammo crates we want to go into. Remember this little transporter here? Well, around this little road stop, there's more stuff. Another ammo box, and then right next to it, another first aid station. Look at that, some dirty water. Dirty water's pretty much the worst thing you can get in a first aid station, or first aid box, sorry. But it's better than nothing when you've just started out. Then up here as well, more dead soldiers, and hey, more ammo boxes. Yeah, heading this way is in fact the opposite of where the quest tells you to go, but as you can see, it gives you a bunch of ammo, and I even got some gunpowder in that one. So a quick little segment on just how to get more ammo at the start more than anything else, but I highly recommend popping down this way. The game won't prompt you to do it, but it's worth doing. Plus, look at that. Welcome to Vault 76 there. You walk up, you see that billboard is my favourite billboard out of any game, I think. Prepare for the future with a little Pip-Boy. It's beautifully done. You can run back up towards the vault, and then carry on with the first quest, which will take you down the right-hand side. Or down that way. Down back towards the robot. Anyway, that's it. Back to Recorded Sarge. With that very basic bit out of the way, let's take a look at the map as a whole. Post-war West Virginia is split into 6 different sections. First is the Forest. This is both the largest part of the map and also where you start the game. In the Prima Game Guide there's a handy little threat chart which also shows you that this is by far the safest area out of the whole map. At a low level you can quite happily walk throughout the forest without too much to fear. Most of the enemies you run across will be very low level, and you shouldn't have to fight against any of the toughest enemies Appalachia has to offer. I'd recommend sticking to exploring just the forest until you are at least level 10. As it is the largest part of the map, there's plenty to explore and keep you busy, without also forcing you to fight against impossible odds at any point. When you do decide to explore another region, you may be best placed heading north into the Toxic Valley. This area will have slightly higher level enemies, but it isn't generally too much to deal with if you're finding your time in the forest to be easy enough. This is also the smallest biome on the map, making it an easy one to fully explore and a nice change from the vastness of the forest. All the way down to the south is the Ash Heap. Whereas you can travel between the forest and Toxic Valley without too much concern, travelling to the Ash Heap requires a bit of prep first, namely a gas mask. This region gains its name from the thick ash that coats the sky, causing damage and potential disease to anyone who enters the region without something to filter it out. Once you have yourself a gas mask, you can venture down to this area, however do keep in mind you'll face some slightly tougher enemies here, a fair few of which have missile launchers on them. That said, the Ash Heap is still a fairly manageable location to visit, as long as you're careful and bring the right gear. Somewhere you might struggle more with is the Savage Divide. The region which splits Appalachia in twain can prove to be quite challenging at times, even once you've started grinding through the levels. As you can see, this has the widest range on the threat chart in the Prima Guide, and this makes sense. There are points in the Savage Divide where the difficulty doesn't feel all that challenging. You might run across a handful of wolves or a small band of super mutants. On the other hand, it's an area where you may well end up encountering your first Scorch Beast. Although this could happen in the Ash Heap, it's a near certainty in the Savage Divide. If you travel through this region, be prepared not only for challenging fights, but also harsh terrain. The mountain ranges that make up a large amount of this region can make it particularly tricky to navigate, so much so that you may want to get some power armor before trekking around here, as power armor reduces all fall damage. Once you've made your way through the Savage Divide, there are 2 regions open to you, the Mire and the Cranberry Bog. The Mire is the slightly safer of the two, so let's focus on that one. This region is a swampy marshland filled with danger from all angles. Wading through the water can cause disease if you don't have a hazmat suit or power armour, and it's home to some of the toughest enemies around, such as gulpers and Mile Queens. If you're watching a beginner's guide to this game, then you probably won't be heading here for a while. Likewise, the Cranberry Bog is also an incredibly challenging location to face off against. This is the final area you will likely go to, and it holds the most challenging enemies around, including the highest frequency of Scorch Beasts you'll ever see. The best advice I can give about this region in this particular guide is to simply not go there. That's enough about what the different regions are, let's focus now on where you'll actually want to go in the early game. After you've done my first little ammo run, the best thing you can do is try and complete the first couple of main quests. These should direct you to the responder quests, as well as Flatwoods and Morgantown, both areas that are ideal for gathering equipment and aid items. Additionally, keep an eye out for events as you are travelling around. Completing these early quests and events will give you plenty of aid items, experience points, and even some plans that you can use to unlock basic gear you'll need for your camp. Speaking of which, let's get to talking about the camp itself. This is a portable settlement you can build wherever you like. Head into your Pip-Boy menu and there should be a prompt at the bottom telling you to deploy your camp. Although you can put this anywhere, it's worth thinking about where the best place to deploy a camp is. Ideally, you should try and place it somewhere relatively safe with room to gather resources. Keep an eye out for locations you like the look of that are by water or around a resource node. Resource nodes can be found as you explore the land. They're relatively easy to spot when you come across them, however there are different types. Basic resource nodes such as iron nodes aren't all that desirable, only granting steel. However, a junk node provides all sorts of different junk, making it an ideal location to build a camp around. When you first start building your camp, you'll notice that there's not much you're able to build. This is because you need to unlock plans to build the majority of items. Plenty of the basics of these will be unlocked in early quests, especially in the side quests for responders, and can also be bought from vendors. Additionally, you can unlock more advanced power generators by completing powering up events, in which you restore power to power plants, and you can often unlock various camp objects by claiming and defending public workshops, areas dotted around the map which effectively serve as temporary camps. Workshops can be claimed by any player, built up in the same way as a camp, and work well to gain resources due to the fact they always have multiple resource nodes within their boundaries. You will have to defend these from attack on semi-regular intervals, and a quest will pop up to identify when this is about to take place. It's also important to note that once you leave the server, you lose control of the workshop, so I wouldn't advise investing too much in them if you're only having a short play session. Back to focusing on the camp itself. Although you can build a camp pretty much anywhere you want, the things you'll likely want most are a stash box to store your junk, a bed in which to gain the well rested bonus, granting you an XP boost, and crafting benches, which deserve a whole section of their own. Before we do that section, one final part about camps I neglected to put in the script, so I'm adding in now. You can move them pretty much whenever you want. When you put down a camp, it's not locked to that location, it just costs a small handful of caps, which is the currency of the game, in order to move it to a different location. Don't worry if you put your camp down somewhere you don't like on the first try, you'll get to move it whenever you like. Crafting is a big part of the Fallout 76 experience, which means you'll want to know what each of the crafting benches do and what you should use them for. In total, there are 6 different crafting benches we'll be looking at, starting off with the most simple, the cooking station. This is likely the first crafting station you will encounter on your travels, and it serves a very simple purpose: making food and drink. When first sitting down at this station, you'll have a handful of recipes listed that you can craft if you have the right materials. These are either going to be meat or vegetable based, and the recipes will vary slightly depending on which they are. For meat-based foods, all you generally need is an item of meat and a piece of wood. If you are making fruit or vegetable based, then you'll need a piece of flora, a boiled water, and wood. These items are all pretty easy to find. Wood is just about everywhere in the forest. You can obtain it from fallen trees and log piles, meat is taken from animal kills, and plants can be harvested from where they grow. Boiled water will often be found lying around wherever you go, and is also sometimes given as quest rewards. Additionally, you can gather dirty water straight from any water source, and then boil it down at a cooking station to make boiled water. 2 dirty water and a wood will craft to make 1 boiled water. When gathering plants and meat, there are a couple of perks which can help you with this: Green Thumb and Butcher's Bounty. Green Thumb is incredibly simple, as it automatically gives you double the amount of plants you would normally gather, without you having to do anything other than just equip the perk. Butcher's Bounty is a little different, as you instead have to activate a search on an animal corpse. There will be a prompt as for what you should press on this. On PC it's spacebar as default, and it's percentage based on if you actually get any more meat shot or not. If you get more meat, there will be a perk animation and an additional bit of meat will spawn in the dead creature's inventory. Fallout 76 is a survival game of sorts, so having enough food and drink to keep your bars topped up is critical. Make sure you're using those cooking stations. Raw meat and vegetables aren't that good for you and have a chance to cause diseases, so try and make sure you're cooking up stuff. Next, let's go to the weapons workbench. This is where you craft, modify and repair weapons. Want to make yourself a hunting rifle? Head here. Want to add a new sight or receiver to the gun you're using? Head to the weapons workbench. Had your weapon break on you in the middle of a fight? Head to the weapons workbench and you can repair it, providing you've got the junk available. Speaking of junk, you can also use this workbench to scrap down junk and weapons. All of the crafting benches, other than the cooking station, can be used for this, and I often find myself wandering around the map, looking for a bench where I can scrap down some weapons I found in the hope of learning new mods. Armour benches are very similar to weapon benches. They function in the exact same way, but instead for armour. If you want to mod your armour, repair it, or craft something new, then this is the bench you'll head to. As for learning the mods for weapons and armour, these can be found as plans as you travel around. However, the way you'll likely unlock most of them is by scrapping items. Scrap down a hunting rifle and you have a chance to learn a mod for hunting rifles. Scrap a leather chest piece and you might learn something for that armour type. The more items you scrap, the more mods you will learn. Next up on the workbenches we have chemistry stations. At these stations you can craft a variety of healing items, such as stim packs, healing salves and disease cures. A fair few of the healing recipes require not only learning the recipe by finding the plan, normally obtained by completing quests or events, but can also require having certain perk cards equipped, such as Chemist. Chemistry stations are also useful for smelting ore into usable junk. You can find ore in the side of cliffs or down mines. It's especially prevalent in the region of the ash heap. You can also craft gunpowder at a chemistry workstation, which is very helpful when you use a tinkerer's workbench. The tinkerer's workbench has a couple of primary uses: crafting ammo and making bulk junk. Ammo is something you'll likely run low on at one time or another. Although you can find it whilst out and about, if you're relying on particular ammo types, you will want to craft some for yourself. Ballistic ammo will require steel, lead and gunpowder to make. All the basic ammo is unlocked and ready to craft, meaning that all you really need to focus on here is getting enough materials to craft the ammo itself. Energy ammo and various special types of ammo can also be crafted at this station, however the required components tend to vary a lot more than the standard ballistic rounds. As for bulk items, this is a way to change junk from individual pieces into groups. As an example, you can bulk up lead, so your stash is filled with bulk lead instead of basic lead scrap. This doesn't actually change things all that much, however both lead and aluminum are lighter in their bulk forms, meaning you can save a little space in your stash. One final note for the Tinkerer's Workbench is that you can also make explosives here. If you like to use grenades or mines, then you'll want to spend a decent bit of time at this bench. The final crafting workbench is the Power Armor Station. All the other benches are fairly easy to find plans for. They are either found lying around the forest, or are rewarded from early responder quests. The plans to create Power Armor Stations are learnt from completing the Minor Miracles quest down in the Ash Heap, and require you to be level 25. This means you won't be able to build this in your camp straight away, however you can find these scattered around the map. At a Power Armor Station you can modify and repair your power armor. Towards the beginning of the game you likely won't have any power armor you can use, but as you move up through the levels you'll find yourself able to use this heavy suit of armor. Towards the start, don't worry about power armor. It's very nice to have, but it's much more of a late game focus. Now we've spoken about the crafting benches, let's move on to actual equipment itself. Early on you'll be picking up whatever weapons and armour you can find. Normally these will be acquired either from the bodies of enemies you kill or as rewards from quests and events. Additionally, you may run across metal safes which can be opened with a quick lockpicking minigame, and these normally contain at least one weapon or piece of armour. Once you do start getting a bit of choice as to what you pick up, here's a few suggestions for you, depending on your personal playstyle. For melee characters, the machete makes a good early weapon. Scrap a couple of them down and you should be able to learn the serrated blade mod, which also will add bleeding damage. Something with similar range are the shotguns, notably the pump action shotgun. This is a very satisfying weapon to use, and can make you feel like a real badass. If that's not reason enough to use it, I don't know what will be. Any pistol users out there will likely want to complete the final departure quest in Morgantown Airport in order to acquire the Somerset Special. This is a legendary .44 revolver which ignores 50% of armour. And finally, anyone who enjoys using long range combat should gather up hunting rifles. These are frequently found on super mutant and scorched corpses, and by breaking them down, you can easily learn enough mods to make a decent early sniper out of it. As for armour, the early pieces you will normally find are wood, leather, raider and metal. Out of these four, I would recommend focusing on leather and metal pieces. Leather armour has high energy resistance, making it good against lasers and fire damage, whilst metal has higher damage resistance, making it ideal for facing off against most guns. Overall, I'd say metal armour is better early on, however it is a little more rare than leather armour, so don't worry if you only end up with a couple of metal pieces. In general, it's quite easy to tell if an item is better than what you've currently got equipped, and that's due to the plus/minus system. If the item is better, you'll see at least one plus symbol next to the relevant stat that is improved. Likewise, if it's worse in some way, then you'll see at least one minus next to the stat. This is an easy way to compare equipment and give you a rough idea of how it will shape up compared to what you've been using. Best bet though is to just try stuff out and see how you get on with it. Don't be afraid to try a new weapon, as it may end up being your favourite. I mentioned in the crafting section that you can repair weapons and armour at their respective workbenches. As you continue to use a weapon or have armour soak up damage, its condition will degrade. Eventually, the item will even break. When this happens, you can't use it anymore until you repair it. The last thing you want in the middle of a fight is to have your gear breaking, so keep an eye on the condition bar of all your equipment and make sure to repair anything that's getting low. I've touched on weapon and armour mods already in this video, but I do want to reiterate just quickly. By scrapping down weapons and armour, you will learn modifications for them, that can then be applied to the same type of weapon or armour you just broke down. This makes scrapping weapons well worth doing, as you will want to mod your gear. A standard weapon you pick off the ground is never going to be as good as one you modify yourself. Final part on the equipment section is legendary gear. You'll find standard equipment everywhere you go, but legendary equipment is what you really want to get your hands on. I mentioned earlier the Somerset Special, which is a legendary .44 pistol, which is acquired from a quest. There's only a handful of quests in game which will reward you with a legendary item, so instead you'll likely be looking to get legendaries from legendary enemies. Killing these will reward you with a randomised legendary item, making it more than worthwhile to go and kill them whenever you encounter them. Probably the most frequent way you'll require legendaries early on though are through completing events. The first question you might have about events is, what are they? Events are effectively temporary radiant quests that pop up all over the map. When you get into the area of the event, it will trigger, letting you know what to do in the same way a quest would. Unlike most quests, events have timers attached to them, meaning you either need to wait out the timer whilst completing an activity, such as defending a robot, or complete a task before the timer runs out, such as killing a certain amount of enemies in a given time. For the most part, these are designed to be something done in a group. However, I found that almost every single event in the game can be completed solo. So that's what events are, but why should you care about them? Well, because they give great equipment, interesting missions, and can often reward you with plans and legendary items. Not only are the rewards great, but a lot of the events are pretty interesting in and of themselves. I was playing the game last night with Stilltown Eric, and we were completing a mining-based event in the ash heap. We had to gather materials in the mine and then escape before the mine collapsed. I realised a little too late that the mine was collapsing, so I rushed towards the exit, almost catching up with Eric, but sadly not quite making it. The mine crashed down on top of me. Eric escaped with his gathered items, but I lost my junk. This was a really cool experience within the game. It gave me a memorable death, and I still got some rewards for sticking with the event till the end. I've been playing this game for hundreds of hours, and I now spend the majority of my time completing events, as they're probably the best thing to do within the game itself. And that's it for my beginner's guide to Fallout 76. Hopefully this will have proved helpful to any of you starting out in the game. If you do have any questions, then leave them in the comments below and I'll answer them as soon as I can. Any tips of your own can also be shared in the comments. I'm sure everyone currently playing has at least one thing they wish they knew before first jumping into the game. If this guide was helpful, do leave a like, and also feel free to share this video with anyone you know who has just picked up the game. Of course, if you want more Fallout 76 content, then you should also subscribe, as my channel is packed with videos and there's plenty more to come. As always, Thank you very much for watching. Sarge out.